Hey everyone. Due to current circumstances, I haven't been able to train Brazilian Jiu Jitsu in about 8 months. Not to fear though, because through desperation and mail from my parents, I managed to receive my original weapon of choice. I'm talking about Escrima sticks. I used to play with these all the time back when I was in high school with no friends, and now that I'm in law school with no friends, I figured now was the perfect time to get back into my old hobby of swinging sticks around and pretending to be Nightwing. Speaking of, let's get into how Nightwing would probably fight. Nightwing is the original Robin named Dick Grayson, who is Batman's sidekick that eventually becomes his own hero. He is an expert martial artist, detective, ladies' man, acrobat, and vigilante, among other things. Since this character has existed since the 1940s, he has multiple incarnations with different methods of fighting, but generally he leaps around and fights people with Escrima sticks that are also tasers. According to Batman Arkham Knight, Nightwing is 6 feet tall and weighs about 175 pounds. This was kind of shocking to me because I thought he would be bigger. For one, he's pretty lean for someone that tall, but we can chalk that up to him wanting to be light in order to take advantage of his acrobatics. One thing that I'll be doing in this video is comparing Nightwing to the best martial artists in the world that are around his size. Given that Nightwing walks around at 175 pounds, he would probably be about the same size as fighters who compete at the 145 pound, 155 pound, and possibly the 170 pound weight divisions in the UFC. I'm picking the UFC just because it's, generally the best fighters are in the UFC. For example, this is the general size of fighters around that size. That would be like Conor McGregor, Cowboy Cerrone, Wonderboy Thompson, Max Holloway, and Anthony Pettis. He'd be a bit taller than Conor McGregor, but he's probably about the same height as Cowboy and Wonderboy, but they might be a little bit heavier than him. To be a well-rounded fighter, Nightwing would have to be able to be a competent grappler and striker. We can pretty much guarantee that Nightwing would have some level of wrestling, boxing, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, judo, kickboxing, and Muay Thai. Nightwing in the Arkham games and comics fights with an explosive striking style, utilizing a lot of kicks and flips. In real life fighting, being explosive has a really good advantage of overwhelming opponents with surprise and raw power. However, this comes at the disadvantage of using up too much energy and sometimes reducing striking accuracy. I think some real life counterparts that really encompass Nightwing's fighting style are Yair Rodriguez, who's ranked number 5 in the 145 pound division, Tony Ferguson, who's ranked number 3 at 155 pounds, Edson Barboza, who's ranked number 14 in the 155 pound division, and Anthony Pettis, who's currently ranked number 14 at the 170 pound division. These are all explosive fighters who take advantage of movement and unpredictability in fighting, typically outside the typical boxing range of an opponent, usually in that kicking range. Yair fights predominantly with his high-flying kicks and wild striking. Barbosa is another fighter who utilizes kicks, although he prefers attacking with leg kicks. He was actually the first fighter in the UFC to win with a spinning heel kick. Pettis has a strong conventional game, but brings an assortment of outside-the-box strikes, probably most famously his kick off the cage. His Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is pretty good too. The most well-rounded fighter here, in my opinion, is Tony Ferguson. Tony has weaponized every part of his game to the point where I don't even think Nightwing could really encapsulate his entire fighting style, and that's pretty good because Nightwing is a fictional character. What Tony brings to the table is his use of acrobatics and athleticism to bring explosiveness and evasiveness into his game. So basically combine Yair's Taekwondo, Barbosa's Muay Thai, Pettis' unique attacks, and Tony's unconventional evasiveness and ability to mix it up, and you'd get basically what I'd imagine Nightwing would fight like. But Nightwing isn't all about hand-to-hand combat. Like Batman, he also uses an assortment of gadgets. The first that I'll talk about are his Escrima sticks. They're essentially just 2 sticks with tasers at the end. Escrima sticks are used in Escrima, obviously, also known as Cali and Arnis. It's a Filipino martial art, you get the point. Nightwing with sticks would fight way differently than Nightwing without sticks. Escrima sticks are used like clubs, where the primary method of attack is a swinging strike. There are 2 sticks allow someone to strike more times consecutively, with less time between strikes. The closer you hit someone with the end of the stick, the more force will be in the blow. Your grip of the stick is near the bottom, but not completely at the end so your hand doesn't slip off. You can strike with what would be the butt of the stick. However, to me, it feels pretty awkward and would maybe only have an advantage if you were holding someone in a clinch-like position, but there's really no point to ever go to this position in the first place. When striking with these sticks, you want to keep your opponent in the distance where the stick extends for the maximum impact and safety for yourself. You can take a wide stance if you really want to add more power to your swing, but I think it's better just to keep a short stance so you can maneuver around easier. It's much more important to keep your opponent in the optimal distance than to get that slightly more amount of power. After all, the main point of using the Escrima sticks is distancing. Speaking of distancing, there's no reason to throw a punch if you're using Escrima sticks, but there's also not much reason for you to throw kicks. The striking range of the sticks extends past the range of your legs. You can basically accomplish the same benefit of a kick, but without sacrificing your balance. Push kicks might sometimes be useful to just create distance, but it's almost like why bother when you can just hit them with the stick? The main strength behind things like swords and spears is the ability to thrust, but given the mass of the stick and the lack of control of the tip, a thrust would be as useful as handing the Escrima stick to your opponent. However, Nightwing's Escrima sticks are also tasers, which might be why he keeps them relatively short, so he can better control the tip. I'm not sure if the advantage of a taser is worth sacrificing the striking power and range offered by more traditional Escrima sticks. If Nightwing loses a stick, he can still use the other in the same way, obviously, or he could just grip both ends and use it to block or push. If you try to block with the Escrima stick near the edge, you'll find that you can't offer much resistance. It's better to use the middle, but obviously you have to keep an eye out for your hands. However, don't even focus on blocking, that's a loser's mindset. Just keep your distance and keep swinging. The last thing I'll show is the range of attacks, which I'll just demonstrate now. Do I look cool? No. Okay, let's move on. All the gadgets I'm going to mention are from the Arkham games, and also from real life. We have the Wingding, which is just another batarang, the grapple gun, wrist darts, back claw, line launcher, and remote electrical charge, and then I'll talk about some real life gadgets that Nightwing would probably use. The Wingding, which I guess is just a boomerang, in my opinion, probably wouldn't be that useful, given the amount of mass and the maximum throwing power a human can have. I doubt it would be able to consistently stun or knock out opponents. Here's a video of a UFC fighter throwing a boomerang at another UFC fighter. A real-life Nightwing would probably leave this at home. If he wanted to make it more effective, though, he could sharpen it, but that kind of thing goes against the whole non-lethal aspect of his character. The grapple gun would probably break his shoulder if he ever tried to use it to actually grapple up a rooftop. He could probably use it as a gun, though. Speaking of which, we also have the similar Batclaw. I think this would really only be useful to use like a gun, grabbing someone or something with it and then pulling it closer. It just seems like something that would be pretty hard to pull off, especially with the claw at the end if you ever play one of those claw games at like a Dave & Buster's or arcade. The wrist dart is a pretty decent idea, though I think in real life it would probably either kill the person right away or put them in a life-threatening situation, or otherwise it would just be useless. I mean, if you need a poison to act so quick that like a person immediately gets knocked out, yeah. The line launcher has the same problems as the grapple gun and backclaw. You could still probably shoot someone with it, but it fires backwards at the same time, so you'd have to worry about shooting yourself. The remote electrical charge is basically a taser with unlimited ammo and much better range, so I would say this weapon would definitely be useful to use. So now some ideas for additional realistic gadgets that I think Nightwing would use would be pepper spray, CS gas, maybe a sound cannon, and rubber projectiles like rubber bullets, although Nightwing and most of the Bat family don't really use guns. But yeah, basically any type of the thing that police officers use to disperse crowds without killing anyone. And the final topic I would like to cover is his superhero suit. It's bullet resistant, at least in the games. Looks cool, and it kind of conceals his identity. I would really only add like one or two major changes. That would be the addition of a helmet. Obviously, if you get hit in the back of the head while fighting, it's not great. It's pretty much the easiest way to get taken down aside from being shot at. And I would also say maybe adding a gas mask, especially if he's going to use stuff like CS gas and pepper spray devices. So a fully equipped Nightwing would likely use the remote electrical charge from a distance. He would have some type of grapple gun just in case he needed to pull someone who was maybe standing above him, or pull something out of someone's hands. He could have a wingding or two, just in case he really wanted to and wanted to just chuck something at someone. In a pinch, he could shoot poison darts from his wrist, although, I mean, it would really depend what could really be useful in real life. And, of course, he could carry some of that more realistic equipment that police carry that I mentioned before. He would mainly fight with his Escrima sticks, just focusing on striking with those, not really kicking or grappling too much. But in the event he loses those, he can resort to that explosive, elusive, and surprising striking style that I spoke about before. Given Nightwing's build, he seems like he would probably be more of a jiu-jitsu type grappler than, say, like a power wrestler, just because he's kind of tall and lanky, whatever. He doesn't seem like, that short, stout, like power wrestler type. I mean, he could be, but I just get the sense that he would be more of a jiu-jitsu guy, but that's kind of headcanon-y. Anyway, so in one-on-one situations, he could use jiu-jitsu. But against multiple people, it's not great. But if he's on the ground, it could help him get up without taking too much damage. And he could also use it for those sneak attacks like in the Arkham games. Although, if he has a stick with a taser, maybe that would be better than trying to get like a rear naked choke, but whatever. So anyway, that's probably how Nightwing would fight in real life, at least according to my opinion. With all his skills and equipment, realistically, I think he could probably fight off a decently large group of people, so long as they don't have like weapons and stuff, and as long as he has enough space to maneuver and he can keep himself from getting surrounded. Anyway, that's the end of the video. Like and subscribe if you want me to continue this series. If I make another one of these, I think I'll cover Red Hood, aka Jason Todd, so let me know if you want to see that. Anyway, thank you. Bye-bye.